Well, back in the summer, there was a lot of doubts that began with Sonny Dykes and TCU. Voted to finish 7th in the Big 12 preseason poll in what was supposed to be a rebuilding season for Dykes in year one. Not the case. The Horned Frogs' number 3 team, also in the Fiesta Bowl and set to meet Michigan on New Year's Eve. A lot has changed and a chance to reach a national championship. Our Dennis Dodd catching up with the man on a mission in Sonny Dykes.
Sonny, how is TCU uniquely prepared for this moment? Because it's a high mark in the program's career.
Yeah, it is. I think the good thing is, and our players, none of them obviously played in the Rose Bowl a decade ago, but I think that they know the history. They know that TCU's been on this stage before and had success. Most of our team, this is the first time they've been to a bowl game, so there is certainly a little bit of a learning curve and some adjustment that has to take place. But our guys have been really flexible this year. They've adapted and been able to adjust to everything we've thrown at them. So I anticipate them coming out and playing really well.
Was there a moment during the season when you thought this was possible? In other words, a 12-0 run, 12-1 run that would get you to the playoff?
Well, we knew we had some talent. We didn't really know how we were going to adapt and be able to kind of create our own identity. I think that we had to deal with some adversity. And, we had a really good football game against Oklahoma, really played well. And that's when we started to say, well, this team's got some potential and we can do some things. But to me, the comebacks, going on the road and winning, we played 3 out of 4 games on the road. We went to West Virginia, 2 Texas, and 2 Baylor. And that has been a tough road historically for TCU, to go on the road and win those games. And so, our guys persevered, and that's when we thought, this team's got some toughness. This team has what it takes to be able to do this week in and week out. And that's really the thing that you have to do to get in the college football playoff now is you can't have any bad games. You got to go out and you have to perform at a high level week in and week out, and this team was able to do that.
Talk to Joe Gillespie, your defensive coordinator. One of the things he has to overcome is obviously Michigan and their physicality. They almost look like a Bo Schembechler team. How does this team get ready for one, the 2-time top offensive line in the country?
Yeah, it's a challenge. Good football teams are built up front. That's always been the case. It will always be the case. We certainly understand that. We think that we have a physical football team. I think in a lot of ways people look at the Big 12 and they look at the history of the league and all the scoring and the lack of defense, and they just assume that that's the way the league still is. And it's not. It's a different league now than it has been in the past. It'll be a big challenge for us. So Michigan does an outstanding job staying patient in the run game. They'll keep pounding. They've had a lot of success in the second half because their offensive line just wears people down. And so we're going to have to play a lot of different people up front. We're going to have to do a good job of rolling guys, which we normally do. But we're going to have to stay fresh and continue to play physical for 4 quarters.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, appreciate it. Looking forward to it.
Join us now in Scottsdale. Dennis Dodd, of course, here on HQ. And we just saw your conversation here with Sonny Dykes. We talk about the history he's made the Big 12 in year one. Basically, all the doubters, of course, leading back into the preseason. What was your takeaway from that conversation in totality?
Well, I think he distilled down, Brandon, what this game is about. If you want to make it very simple, it's Michigan's physicality versus the air raid. And can TCU match up in the trenches for a team that loves to pummel teams? We saw that in the Ohio State game. We saw it all season from Michigan. And can TCU offensively hang in against the number 4 defense in the country that's as solid as any in recent years? The only comparison may be a team like Georgia. Michigan is very good up the middle. Mazi Smith, defensive lineman. Mike Morris off the edge, replacing Aiden Hutchinson. Their center, Olu Oluwatimi, is an All-American who won both the Remington Best Center and the Outland, which is the best interior lineman. So TCU is going to have to defeat those type of players, that type of scheme to get over. So it's really physicality versus finesse right now.
Physicality, you see it on both sides here. Jim Harbaugh, of course, maybe no stranger to this point, back-to-back times in the CFP. He's not the only familiar face at this point in the season. I want you to take a listen to this.
Yes, sports.
Everybody knows you, Dennis.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Jim, why are you guys maybe better prepared this year doing it a second time? Do things come easier, the logistics, compared to last year?
I don't know. Don't ever really like to get into comparing anything, really. As soon as you start comparing something, somebody or something gets diminished. So tend to stay away from comparisons.
Dennis, I agree with Jim. Everybody knows you. I mean, you don't need to announce yourself. You're Dennis Dodd for CBS. We get that there. But his reaction, of course, second straight season on this stage, your takeaway from what he said and also the players that you spoke to this week.
Yeah, he didn't really bite on the question, which really was, look, were you just happy to be there last year? I didn't use those words with him, but I did with the players. And I got 5 to 7 Michigan players alone say those words. We were just happy to be here last year. They had beaten Ohio State in the first time forever. They had won the Big Ten in the first time forever. Yes, Georgia was a good team, and yes, Georgia won the national championship, but Michigan was non-competitive in that semifinal in the Orange Bowl. This team, judging by today at the media day, is very, very loose. They know they're favored. They know they're physically better than most teams they play, including TCU, and they're ready to go. They're accomplished on the task to the point that Michigan's appearance here was delayed. They're contractually obligated to come right after TCU at 9:30 local time. They delayed things until noon because they had meetings, Brandon, and that was more important than meeting the media.
A little more different, as you mentioned, the second time around, of course. We'll see how this pans out. Now it's time for the Stats That Matter, presented by Penske. When you gain the right transportation partner, your business gains ground. And when we talk about comeback wins this season, it fits perfectly with both these programs here, Dennis. Michigan and TCU, as we see here, tied for comeback wins, of course, with Troy and UNC, but both of these two in the same bowl game. Chances this plays out here on Saturday, it may come back to one of those comeback wins for either side.
Well, TCU being the underdog, I think if they can hang in until the fourth quarter, they will be supremely confident they can win this game. 5 of their 12 wins this year, Brandon, you referenced it, they have come from behind, some by as few as 3 points against Colorado, but in consecutive weeks, they were down by 14 and 18 points to Texas Tech and West Virginia and came back and won those games. Michigan leads the country with a point differential in the second half of 206 points. That's an average of 16 points better than the opponent in the second half, and you need to go no further than the Ohio State game to know that 28-3 in the second half in Columbus, and physically dominated Ohio State. So both teams are used to coming from behind. Both teams are comfortable being behind, but I think because of what we mentioned, that it's going to be finesse versus physicality. If TCU can hang in till the fourth quarter, and if they're down by 10 points, they're going to be fine with it because they've done it before.
Dennis Dodd there in Scottsdale ahead of the Fiesta Bowl between TCU and Michigan. Remember, Dennis, everybody knows you, so you don't have to announce yourself every time at one of these things here. Appreciate your time breaking everything down ahead of that CFP semifinal on Saturday. Hey, don't forget the Cover 3 podcast. The guys giving the previews, picks, and best bets for those two games there, Georgia, Ohio State, and Michigan and TCU, as we just discussed there. Bowl Nanza, they're called it. New Year's 6 there as well. Download and give them a follow.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.